Hello, today I'm going to discuss my thoughts about imaginary worlds, which are often called paracosms. Um, so if you like this video, you can like, subscribe, hit the bell, all that stuff. But let's get into it. So I am a big fan of these worlds that artists and writers build. I also do my own. Um, Now, if you like this kind of thing, I would check out some outsider art or art brut. Um, but it exists in literature, it exists in art, it exists in music. So the first half of this video, I'm going to discuss a few examples of what paracosm is. And then the second half, I'm going to show you some examples of my illustration art or the visual side of my paracosms, and I'll discuss a little bit of how that relates to my writing side of the imaginary worlds as well. So in literature, probably the most famous paracosm is Middle Earth, and by Tolkien, obviously. And there are other ones that are probably a little bit, I wouldn't say lesser, but lesser known than Middle Earth, and one would be Narnia. Another would be Discworld by Terry Pratchett. Narnia is C.S. Lewis. Now, it doesn't always have to be a world like that. In those cases, it's more of there's a logic to the world. It is like if you take Middle Earth, you could picture living in Middle Earth as like a real place. Some paracosms are not like that. They're very fantastical. An example would be in terms of an art paracosm, but also in terms of one that you probably could not see yourself actually living inside, would be the work of Henry Darger. He was a reclusive janitor that worked on this series of drawings, paintings, and sort of a book, a 15,000 page book, which is very dedicated, I'd say, to write something that long, but it was over the course of many years. And the story is called The Story of the Vivian Girls in what is known as the realms of the unreal of the Glendico Angelinian war storm caused by the child slave rebellion. Very long title, but most people call it In the Realms of the Unreal. And people found this in his apartment in 1973 upon his death. And there were, some people think it's almost like a pedophilia type thing, but I don't really see it that way because he had a very difficult life, and it almost seems to me more like a therapeutic thing. And often paracosms can be that way. People get lost in that world. There are many of them that are like that. Another example of an artist that does this is Eugene von Bruchenhain. He's an outsider artist that did a lot of paintings, these sort of cosmic paintings, and he did photographs of his wife in all these kind of strange costumes. And then he also made these altars and thrones out of chicken bones. So it's all very interesting stuff, but it's all kind of tied together. In music, an example would be like Daniel Johnston. If you know him or his work, a lot of people think he's insane, and maybe technically he is, but there's this kind of world he creates. And another person would be Syd Barrett from Pink Floyd. A lot of his work, especially the stuff solo, where he did a couple albums aside from Pink Floyd, they're very like based in this kind of fairy tale, pastoral kind of vibe. And all of these people, I think, have this kind of this certain kind of genius, and I wouldn't call it like genius like Einstein genius. I would call it more like only they think that way. It's part of their sort of psyche, and it's almost something they have to do. Even in the case of Tolkien, he was very obsessive about creating the languages, and a lot of the languages predate his actual stories. So like he was kind of doing that his whole life before he figured out all the components of the story. So it's definitely something that people, artists and writers and musicians, certain ones kind of struggle with. So I would almost go so far as to say that the paracosm is a kind of heaven and hell at the same time. People get lost inside of it, which I've also done to a degree. But now I'm going to show you a bit of my art, and I'm going to discuss some aspects of it and how I see it as far as my paracosm. Okay, so all of my artwork, stories, and poetry are part of a larger imaginary world. When it comes to my illustrations, which are typically paper or digital collage combined with stickers and drawings, I reference the chaotic or destructive aspects of my childhood that kind of invade upon a more sort of cosmic spiritual reality that I experience now. This often contradicts itself or is at odds with the more real world, especially in the aspects of my novels and short stories. In my work, I examine philosophical dualities represented by games of chance, binaries like black and white, checkerboards or game boards, light and dark, geometric designs that form symmetries or discordant schemes, transformations of the psyche also play a large role in my work. Many of my characters or subjects go through a chaotic metamorphosis. I also reference alchemy directly and indirectly to show the states of awareness that these characters or subjects go through. And this is often used in symbolism, alchemical symbolism, or like the process of a spiritual alchemical transformation. I kind of see these as like alternate realities, and I often use cosmic imagery not to reference space travel and the like, but to represent the vastness of the mind and the imagination. So some of the symbols that I often use are ruined cities and buildings. And the reason I use these partly is because I come from Detroit, which is a ruined place. But also, I feel like I've lived a little bit different of a life, where there was a lot of uncertainty, especially in my childhood. So there's this kind of like distressed, weathered aspect to the structures and things that I create in these worlds. I often use dolls or statues, and these can be images of them or stickers of them, or and again, these things are often distressed or kind of destroyed. Rusted machinery is another thing I use often. And like I said before, like chess boards and games boards, things like that. Symbols like feathers, and most of the time when I'm using a symbol, I want it to actually convey something. So, in the case of if there's a feather, maybe it's like the sort of Egyptian way of weighing your soul against the feather. I've read many books on symbolism, so I think I have a pretty good understanding of symbolism. So if there's something in one of my works that seems like it's a symbol of something, it probably is. I like to break apart and reassemble images, recontextualize them. I'm fascinated with revealing magical connections between disparate images and even writing styles. So in my writing work, I've done this many times. Like my first novel, The Invisible Histories of the Spiral Mountain, I write in two voices. I write in an autobiographical voice, and I also write in a sort of magical realist fairy tale voice. In my second novel, The Erotic Tales of Bucephalus, it's kind of like a dream, and this dream doesn't have normal logic, it has dream logic, so it kind of goes everywhere in this sort of awareness that this character is having, and it goes through all these different transformations. Another component in my work is the eternal feminine, a transcendental ideal of the feminine, often in an idyllic image that holds a dark power. The term was coined by Goethe, and I've used it extensively in my work, in all my books to some degree, and in most of my stories, especially my erotic stories, it's in there often. You know, all the images represent a return to like spiritual realms and the revelations we glean from those internal journeys. Many of my ideas come from dreams or visions, playing around, cutting things up, reassembling things in various ways. I'm also interested in the abject, which kind of means like the expelled, the outcast, the rejected, the wretched, and the uncanny. This phenomenon is used to describe incidents where a familiar thing or event is encountered in an unsettling, eerie, or taboo context. So I like to twist these things and kind of move them around and play around with them, but you know, part of it is me trying to push these boundaries. The writer and philosopher Georges Bataille, one of my heroes, writes extensively about taboo and the transgression of taboo. And I really enjoy pushing those boundaries. And I don't mean like taboo in the sense of doing things in reality that, you know, could get me in trouble necessarily, but pushing the taboos in my mind and going beyond what my mind is sort of comfortable dealing with, I guess. So often you'll see me push this a little bit in some of my work where I will kind of take an image that is maybe has like a very young quality, and then I'll sort of destroy it and make it into more of a death quality and just try to push these boundaries a lot. And this can often be done also in a sort of sexual way or sexual element. And this, you know, I have collages that have a lot of this in it, but I also have erotica. Many of my erotic stories connect with my paracosm. So half of my erotic stories I've written to align with genre conventions so I can make money, because everybody needs to make money. But the other half, the more surreal stories, connect to my imaginary worlds. Typically, if the stories have an occult or supernatural element, they fit into my paracosm. And I'd like to think that there's sort of an overarching theme and examination in my work. If you read any of my books or short stories or poetry, or you go through any of my illustrations, book art, or paintings, there's sort of a larger picture that you might be able to get, or what I'm trying to relay, I guess. And I think actually my next book, I'm thinking about defining this paracosm more. I've been kind of going away from it the last few books, but I think I'm going to get back into it and try to make a more epic version of it. So I'm not sure when that will happen, but I'm starting to think about it now, so who knows when that will come. But all in all, I'm really fascinated with this idea of creating your own world. When I was in art school, I kind of knew two different kinds of artists. There were the kind of crafts people that were there, and they were great artists. But there were a few, and maybe myself included, that we had to do it. It wasn't just a skill we were good at. It was something we had to do. And often our worlds, you could see that sort of embracing of this other world. There was maybe a few people there that did that. And I will be honest, whenever I saw their work, I was always way more interested in their work. And I saw it as very mysterious and something I wanted to kind of crack open. Some other people I think that have similar vibes like that as like the sculptor Hans Bellmer. He's also a visual artist. He draws as well. You know, William Blake, to a degree, could even be that when he incorporates writing and book arts together. He's actually one of my personal heroes. Sometime I'm going to do a video about him, but it's kind of daunting, so I haven't done it yet. But his work, especially his later work, is definitely its own paracosm. People, you know, there are scholars that study it, and to this day, people don't know what some of the things mean because they're just so elusive. But I think, you know, maybe the true artist is the person that has that. I mean, I could even say someone like Dali has that. When you see a Dali, you know immediately it's another world. And everyone else maybe is more of a craftsman, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, the last thing I'm going to say about it is I just think that there's something special about these things, and it's unfortunate that a lot of these people, like in the case of Henry Darger or even Daniel Johnston to a degree, and definitely Sid Barrett, they kind of became casualties of their time, because, you know, if art looks good and you hang it on a wall, it's easy to sell and things. But when someone's in their apartment kind of plugging away at something that's nobody really pays attention to, maybe it has a little more heart, I guess. And if you know someone like that that's doing those things, maybe ask them some questions about what they're doing, because they probably have a lot to say about it. And maybe people don't ask them very often. So anyway, that's all I got for today. I will talk to you again soon. Take care. Bye.